Hello everyone, I'm Libby Quintana and I'll be presenting my Education 200 midterm issues in online learning. And to start it off, I'll go over a little history on distance learning. I made sort of a timeline with some of the key points that led to what we have today, which started all the way back in 1728 when a newspaper, the Boston Gazette, published a man named Caleb Phillips' correspondence courses in shorthand, which is what that picture in the upper left-hand corner is. And then over a century later, the University of London became the first university to offer distance learning degrees, which they were able to do by through the teachers sent mailing postcards to the students, and in turn the students would mail back their work and they would grade it in the classroom. Next, in 1906, the University of Wisconsin records lectures and sends them to the students in phonograph form, which I thought was actually really cool. And then in 1918, the University of the Cape of Good Hope in Africa was created, which was a dedicated distance learning institution with many classes offered through distance learning, and then later became known as the University of Africa as we know it today. And then in 1989, Tim Berners-Lee developed what we know today as the World Wide Web, which changed everything we knew about distance learning and like everything in general. And that is what is behind me right now. Um, that is his first proposal for the World Wide Web, which I thought was actually really cool because it looks like a spider web. But yeah. And then through the creation of the World Wide Web, Penn State University in 1995 was able to be the first university to deliver a distance learning course online. So that's essentially the beginning of modern day learning, which was then coined e-learning in 1999. And then by 2012, nearly 400,000 students were studying through distance learning. And then for the next slide, I put together some promising practices like Zoom meetings, which allow for teachers and students to meet face to face while still being apart, and are a great way to ask questions in real time and not having to email the teacher. And being online, it allows you to work at your own pace and not being rushed in the pace that's normal in a classroom that a classroom potentially may be. And then it also allows you to contact your other students via email and Zoom on to work on group projects, and that you can email them at any time. You're not just limited to the time that you have in the classroom together, which I think is actually super helpful. And then the last one that I listed was office hours with teachers, which is super helpful if you have any questions that weren't answered maybe in the Zoom or a lecture that they posted. Yeah, and you just know that they'll actually be there at that time, not maybe whereas in real person you could go to their classroom and maybe they're at lunch or away for a minute. And then as for obstacles, I put access to the internet and devices. It's a really big one today because not every kid has a computer or access to the internet. I know that if I had stayed home, we do not have Wi-Fi in my house because my parents don't think like they need it, you know? So that's a pretty big one. And then students falling behind, not just from misunderstanding, but then also being scared to reach out to the teacher. Like maybe in the Zoom call, they don't want to speak up above everyone to ask for help. And then the biggest one, in my opinion, would be procrastination. Because kids look at the due date and think, oh, I have plenty of time to turn this in. And then like the day comes and they're rushing to get it in last minute on time. And then as for the next slide, I have my experience with online learning, which I started my online learning experience actually a few years before COVID hit. I took online classes through my local junior college while I was still in high school. But in my honest opinion, the positives on the matter would be that I can make my own schedule without having to go around in-person class. So like at my job, I can work a lot more, which is nice. And I can ask my professors for help anytime, like through email. And I know that they'll get back to me because they're used to going and talking to their students. But however, some obstacles for me personally are that sometimes I do get scared to speak up in a Zoom and ask for help. Like maybe a kid is like, oh, like that's a stupid question, but I shouldn't be scared. And but it's also really nice that Zoom offers the private chat to where it's just you and the teacher, which is actually really helpful. But my biggest problem would be procrastination. I have a hard time staying on top of myself and my work to get it done, and then I'll start to get rushing, and it just stresses me out. Whereas if I had just started it earlier, I would have gotten it done. But all around, my experience with online learning has been really positive, and it's allowed me to get ahead of many kids my age because I've already taken many courses online. And my learning management system, I chose Google Classroom. The teachers can upload assignments, lectures, quizzes, and polls all through Google Classroom, and they can set due dates and then go back and adjust the due dates if need be. Like, say the teacher realizes, oh, they need more time on this project, they can always go back and change it. And students are able to access multiple classes through Google Classroom as well. It just has like your dashboard on Canvas, so to say, and it has all of the classes like that. And you can also message your teachers and classmates through it as well. And it also, this is very helpful in my opinion, it has a feature that lets you know if you have any missing assignments and if you turned in anything late. So like you go to a separate screen and it shows all your assignments, and it's if it'll be like in red if it's a missing assignment, or it'll say like late, or it'll say green, like if you turn, it'll be in green if you turned it in, which is very helpful. And then Google Classroom also has a joint video chat feature called Google Meet, which is basically just like another Zoom, which is also very helpful. And then for my social emotional learning through Google Classroom, I put that in Google Classroom, teachers have the option of having students participate in class discussions where they can see their peers' responses to a topic and use that to grow their social emotional skills. And by responding to them and thinking about how their response can show them empathy and manage their emotions, make smart decisions with and without their peers like looking at them. So like a discussion on Canvas, so to say, whereas you engage with your peers through distance learning. Yeah. And then it also teaches them about responsible decision making by having the students be the ones control when they turn their assignment in. There's no teacher like right next to you telling you, hey, you need to get this assignment done and turned in. They have to be responsible and do it on their own time and turn it in themselves. For supports and barriers to different learning abilities, I put for supports, it allows students direct access to ask teachers questions at any time. Whereas, like, say if you were in in-person school, you're in another class, it's hard to go and ask your other teacher a question. But at home, they can just email them and be like, hey, I have a little problem like with this math problem or whatever. And then I put some students may feel uncomfortable in a big classroom setting and they'd enjoy being at home more. They probably just like work better on their own or can get frustrated or like annoyed in class. And then students that need a little more help, they can go to the normal scheduled like Zoom meeting time, and then they can also go to office hours if they need that extra little help, which I think is very helpful. But for barriers, I put some students may need a teacher present to have a reminder to do their homework, or an aid that helps them like get through the day that they may not be able to get their service at home, which would be very, very tough. And then some activities that kids need to actually learn a subject may not be accessible at home. Like, I know kids from my school had to have special iPads that had the words like in a different size that made it easier for them to read to where their eyes um, wouldn't start hurting. Or say a kid needs a special computer to do their homework and they don't have access to it from their home. And for my conclusion, I put I would not be frustrated using Google Classroom. In fact, I did use this platform through my high school the last few months while we were in the beginning of quarantine and COVID and everything. It was actually a very enjoyable experience. It was super easy to navigate, and my teachers also like would send little reminders through it, which were super helpful. And in my opinion, up to now, online learning has been a very positive experience. Um, I just need to work on myself and focusing on my assignments before the last minute and get better study habits, and all around everything would be perfect. It's a very big jump. Yeah. And for my online classroom, I would be sure to include ways to make the classroom more fun, like whether that's through a game of Kahoot with the class on a Zoom or getting to know the class type of discussion post, because um, my experience with school has always been fun. I've always like enjoyed it. I just want to be sure to carry that over to the online experience too. And then for my works cited page, I used the history of blended learning on e-learning industry and CERN or CERN, I'm not sure exactly, Accelerating Science. That was the short history about the World Wide Web, where I got that image of the web from. And then a Forbes interview with the CEO of Zoom, just to learn a little more about Zoom. And then the last one, the best practice handbook for our class textbook, I mean, yeah. And that's it. I hope everyone has a great day. Thank you for listening.